Could we have the meeting called to order and roll call, please?
Huber. Kleppel.
Here.
Werner.
Here.
Waymeyer. Cassette.
Here.
Steffens.
Here.
Woolley.
Here.
Stuckenschneider. Todebush. Hunterstall.
Can we have a, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
You have before you the minutes from the April 5th, 2018 meeting, and I would need an approval of these minutes, unless you have any questions.
Make a motion, approve them.
We have a motion by Bob
Second.
and a second by Gavin. All in favor? Any opposed? Communications report? None at this time. Parks report?
In your packet, you have the monthly report from April. Just a few things I want to highlight. On the Riverfront Trail extension, if those of you have been down there, you can see that we have paved a parking lot by the boat docks, and we extended the trail from there to the western expansion that we had previously had done. We're continuing to work on all the areas down there. We're hauling dirt, and we're going to try to fill in the sides, and we're ordering signage for that area, and we'll continue to work on that. And probably later down the road this month, there'll be some striping and some other things that'll take place on the parking lot and on the trail as well. Basically, from a maintenance standpoint, trying to keep our head above water to a degree with all the grass cutting with the rain that we had early on, and trying to keep up with that and with the baseball fields and everything like that. We're doing our usual daily maintenance. At Burger Park, we have taken down the majority of the fence and the posts down there. We are working on we brought dirt in and doing site grading. These are DNR issues, is that this used to be a landfill and there's constant settling of the ground there. So per DNR permit and everything, we have to alleviate ponding the water. So that's why we're bringing in more dirt and leveling all that out. Also at Burger Park, we continue to work with the disc golf group on the development of the disc golf course. We're working on the design of that now and laying out holes, and they've already gone and bought the baskets and some other things. So probably here within the next month or so, you'll start seeing more activity out there with the development of the placement of the baskets, and seeing some signage and other things go up out there. With the pool opened over Memorial Day weekend. As of right now, with the hot weather, everything's been going really well there. No issues. Big Driver, that has been open since the beginning of April. Things are going well there. We've had 2 incidents of vandalism there, both to the golf ball machine. We were out of commission for about a week and a half or so. We had to order a new part. Everything's up and running. Things are going good there. The medians, we continue to work on the medians. We have cut back all the grasses, and we have removed some grasses and transplanted some. We'll hopefully get out in the next couple of weeks, and there are some new plants that we'll put in there that will add a little diversity and some more color. As I previously reported, this is going to be a 2-year project, so this will be the first phase of it. Then next year we'll come back and hit a few more of the medians doing the same thing. If anybody has any questions or comments.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I was able to go today to the Rotary Tram Trail
Riverfront?
Riverfront
Yeah.
out at the park. And I just wanted to let you know that both Sharon and Barb asked me to acknowledge Robin and your staff for how much that they do for this and how much they appreciate the time and the city's participation in that. But they specifically, called out for Robin and your guys. So I just want to make sure you know that in a good place.
Well, thank you. Mm-hmm. Kevin?
How well is the driving range being used?
I have in the April report, but that was just, I mean, when we first opened it, haven't ran the May numbers yet, but it seems, I get a report every single morning with transactions that take place, and it seems like that it's picking up. Is the overall participation going to cover the cost 100%? We'll have to wait till see the end of the year, but looking at last year, I think we brought in probably about $8,000 or $9,000 in revenue, and there's probably about $10,000 to $12,000 expenses, roughly. Without going back and look at it, that's what's been typical.
Thank you.
Yes, Bob?
Darren, on them Lakeview ballparks, did we get them bolts cut off in them
Yes, we
walkway?
did. Yes, we did.
Okay.
What Bob is referring to, we had a couple of bollards as you come off the parking lot to go to the football fields one way and the baseball fields the other. Over the years, people have ran over those and stuff. We tried repairing it, and it got to a point that we couldn't repair anymore, so the bollards were removed, and there were still some bolts there. And so we had put cones there till we got back to cut them off. Someone took our cones, and someone tripped on it and made Bob aware, and he made me aware of it, so we went down there that day and cut them off.
All right, thank
So
you.
that has been taken care of.
Any other questions,
Only,
comments?
Darren, on that big pavilion out there by the pool,
Yes, sir.
do we have a tarp on that roof up there?
No. What we have had over time, as you guys know, we had put it in the budget many years to get that roof replaced, and it didn't happen, and we did put a tarp on it and stuff. We have gone out to bid for that, and I'll kind of get into it down the road here on my roofing, but we have gone out to bid for the replacement of that.
Okay, because that tarp is moved off of there, and you can see right up through the wood, right up to the sky. I mean, it's been blown off or something.
So hopefully we can get to that here soon with that roofing.
Okay, thank you.
No other questions? Thank you for that report. We'll move to old business, and Darren, you want to talk for a few minutes about the half-cents capital improvement sales tax?
Sure. As we had, we will be having, the mayor and I had talked about the fact of trying to get moving forward on the aquatic complex. As you know, that was the big ticket item for the vote back in April. So we have formed a committee. We wanted to get some representation from this board, obviously, and from the sales tax board, and as well as the council, and then also from some outside entities as well. Well, I say outside, primarily the YMCA. We're asking for them to go ahead and participate with that as well. We've got our first meeting set up for June 28th at 3:30 here at City Hall. Like I said, Darren and I will probably try to sit down and get an agenda hammered out for them to go ahead and take a look at it. But, you know, with the way we're looking at it right now, I mean, we're probably still 2 to 3 years out before we would have the funds available from the collection of that tax, unless, you know, there'd be some other reason for us to bond several projects all at one time. I mean, Jim did that, and you know, from the last half-cent sales tax, but at the thought process at that time was, when he did that was when the recession had hit, and we thought that we'd be able to get some good numbers, and we had a big project with the library. So and when the committee was formed and they were looking at all of these projects, and we had a lion's share of it being for the park system, the idea was, you know, let's try to save on that and just kind of save up our, you know, from year to year, and then we'll just kind of try to do it over an 8-year cycle. So that's what we're still moving towards, and so that committee is going to meet the first time, like I said, on June 28th. So, and I anticipate they'll probably meet once a month or once every other month. I don't know yet.
Thank you. Any questions?
Darren, is that committee, what are they supposed to do? Come up with different types of pools and different types of building?
Here's what I envision their work, what we will need them to go ahead and do. One is, maybe we would probably go start an RFQ process for possibly the design and maybe even the study to see about the demand of, because there's firms that you can hire to kind of do, you know, they'll give you a better idea of maybe what targeted demographic group you're going to be, you know, what are you trying to lure in? What are you trying to use with the aquatic complex? When the committee that was just way too big of a thing for that committee to decide, and they had a lot of other projects to go ahead and look at. But that was discussed at that time. I know that there's some firms out there, so what I envision is that we would go ahead and start a request for qualifications process for firms to come in and interview then, and then, you know, the committee can make a recommendation and forward that on to the council. And that's how you'll start the process. They'll start the study portion of it, and like I said, and my idea is to come up with a timeline and say, okay, by year 3 we plan on being under construction, or year 2, or whatever it ends up being. So we had, I think, how much, I'm trying to remember, 4.5 or was
4 million.
4 million. Okay, 4. For towards the aquatic complex. There were some ideas that you could possibly replace that out there, the existing one as is, if you needed to, for about $2.5 million. That was the discussion. You may put some money aside. That's the whole idea of what we've talked about too, and this is for this committee to kind of take a look at it, is pooling our resources with the YMCA and not trying to compete with them, you know, and so maybe what we could do is the possibility, for those of you that didn't hear those discussions, the idea was possibly, well, if the YMCA is looking to maybe expand their indoor pool, the city could go ahead and work with them on that and partner up with them, and then at the end of the day, our residents would be able to go ahead and buy a pool pass that would be good for 365 days a year. And you could either go to our aquatic complex out here in the summertime, and then in the winter months, you could go ahead and use the Y's pool facilities. And if they wanted to become a member with the Y, that'd be something totally different. But because there was some push for them to go ahead, or there was some push for us to take a look into an indoor pool, and I don't know if it's a large investment for, you know, for the city to go ahead and go down that step, and I think we'd be better served if we tried to partner up with the YMCA and not try to, you know, compete with them. So, and they've also expressed some interest possibly in possibly managing our pool when it's completed, or even possibly, you know, even the existing facility that we have, maybe even next year. We've had some preliminary discussions with them. I think you've always, and nothing against Midwest Pool, I think they've done what we've asked them to go ahead and do for the most part. So, but if, you know, it'd be good to have something else to compare it with.
Okay, thank you.
Does the committee, will the committee start at ground zero and study, you know, different locations throughout the city for a pool? Or, you know, will there be kind of a prejudice toward the existing location?
You know, that's a good question. I think we can probably take a look at, I think the idea was take the footprint of what's out there for purposes of putting a budget together, and I will tell you that that's how the budget was put together. But at the same time, you know, I think we need to take a look at that. My biggest concern, and I will say this from my viewpoint, is I have no problem with possibly looking at moving the pool someplace else at a different location if it makes sense. But I think what we need to do is make sure that it's at a place to where it's not specifically geared the only way you can get there is through an automobile. You know, if we can get, you know, the kids to go ahead and walk to be there, that's the beauty of the location of where it's at today. And so that's, to me, that's why that spot has a, you know, it should have preference. But if we can see some other spot that would make sense, then I say, you know, we're all ears, you know. But that's part of what the consultant can go ahead and help us look at too. So, anybody else?
Any other questions?
Do we know where the majority of the children live in Washington? I mean, where there's a higher density of them? Because over by the existing pool, it seems like those are older. That's an older community that they're done with kids. There are some new people living over
right. I would say, which I guess, and again, I think I defer to when we sit there and look at the consultant, and they'll come up with, they can give us their thoughts on that. I would say just from city planning, I mean, we've looked at it. Yes, you do have maybe some older families within that neighborhood, but then that's also the part where a lot of young families that are just starting can buy their first house, and so that's the other thing. It's affordable over there. And then if you start looking at areas like southeast part of town where you've got the newer subdivisions, they may even have like when we have places like this, I guess the Washington, the one that's down there off of Washington Heights Drive, you know, the pool that's there for those subdivisions. I mean, so they've got access to that, or they may even have pools in their own backyards. That was the thing that was tricky for, I think, for the committee when we were going through that process was, you know, is there going to be a demographic for this, and what are we after? And we talked about the fact of you've got the families with the young toddlers that want to go. You've got the teenagers that want to go, and then you've got the swim teams that want to go ahead and compete, and then you've got maybe older adults for aqua therapy sessions and stuff like that. So those are the 4 demographics that we kind of looked at, but we'll wait for a consultant to kind of give and say, well, this is probably what you're more geared towards, you know, or what would make the most sense. So I don't want, like I said, those other places, and the other thing I think that came up was the fact of it's also pretty affordable for a lot of people to go ahead if they've got room in their backyard. They've got these pools you can pop up for $200, $400, you know, or whatever, and some people do that rather than, you know. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration. I do know that one thing that we stressed though was a splash park to be a component of it, and that's something that it can extend the life of the aquatic complex. Maybe you shut down the pool because your lifeguards are gone, and you have to, just based on what we've seen historically. But you have a splash pad that's there that can go into September or whatever. You don't have to have lifeguards there, et cetera, and it's still a draw for, you know, for the kids during the hot months, even when August and September.
Yeah, back into what Darren said with the splash playground, if it's designed with a separate entrance and that kind of stuff, you know, like this year it got hot quick. You could open the splash playground part in the beginning of May or whatever, then your pool opens up, you know, Memorial Day weekend. Then after Labor Day weekend, once you get closer to the fair, that we typically shut down the pool because you lose your guards to go to college and that kind of stuff. You can leave the splash playground as open as long as the weather allows us to.
Right. So that was part of the thing too about you know, when you build a complex and you start looking at this, that those are all the ideas that we wanted to see. How can we extend the life of it? And there's also some critical things that were said, that were raised from our past design. You know, if you have those lazy river functions, and this is something new for me that I learned, was the fact of you know, they require more lifeguards to go ahead and be there. And so it really all depends a lot upon your design of what you have and how much it's going to require for how many lifeguards you have working it, too. So anyway.
Thank you. No other questions, right?
Have the members of the park board been appointed to the new committee?
Yes, we've asked Betty, we have asked Sparky, and Tessie.
Okay.
So those 3 are the ones that we asked from the park board. We also asked for the 2 council liaisons to go ahead and be there. So Greg and Jeff. Greg also sat on the transportation, or the half-cent capital improvement sales tax committee. Jeff Padkey's also has been reassigned to you as a council liaison. And then let me go through the list in my head. Oh, and the other 2 then that we had from the sales tax committee was Diane Jones. And then we also had Chris Eckelkamp. And then we asked Becky Cox. I'm waiting for a confirmation from Becky or whatever, but I mean, we're working with her to find somebody that'll sit on there with the YMCA. And then to be the mayor, myself, and Darren, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Roofing bids.
I just kind of want to give you an update of where we're at on the roofing bids. As you may be aware, that last spring that we had wind and hailstorms. Over the past year, we've worked with our insurance company in identifying damage to all those facilities. They have took their initial review and they gave us a lump sum payment up front to address some of those. We have gone out to bids for package A, B, and C. D is out to bid right now, and we're working on package E. Now, the reason that we broke them up to so many packages because we have so many different types of roofs and to the scope of it, and we felt that it'd be easier for contractors to bid on it. We might get a better price with doing that. Package A, we received the bids, we reviewed the bids, we went to council. Council has approved the bid on that, and that involves Riverfront, which basically is the main pavilion down there. I have a meeting with the contractor on Friday to set up construction schedule and to get that moving forward. We have rentals and other functions down there, so we're trying to squeeze it in so that less disruption as possible. On package B and C, we have received those bids. We reviewed them. We send that back to the insurance company because what we're seeing in the bids have come in higher than the insurance company's initial estimates, so they're reviewing that. And right now, it looks like it's going to be in our favor, that they are going to raise maybe what they're giving us based on that. Going back to B and C, trying to get them, they may not be in the correct order, but one of them is for the train depot and the freight depot roofs. The other package is for Main Park, which would be, the main part of that would be the main pavilion. Package D that we're out right now is for basically Lakeview for the baseball concession stand and the soccer concession stand. It also covers 2 of the pavilions around Lions Lake. We also looked at what it cost to replace them with what's on there now with the asphalt shingles as well as metal roofs. We are finding that there's roughly a $6,000 to $7,000 increase on going with metal roofs opposed to the shingles. So we're looking at all that. And then the last package, package E, will be the library and 2 fire stations because they have more of the flat roof, commercial roof. And so we're working on the bid specs for that, getting that out. Like I said, the insurance company's reviewing all that. Depending on their review will depend that we'll take it back to council for approval. And even the ones that were already approved by council, depending on the insurance adjustment, like at the Riverfront, we just went with the main pavilion. There were other structures that needed, they said they were damaged. Depending on the amount of money they give us, we might be able to go back and do a change order to correct those, to change those if we decide that that's what we need to do. Now, like the ones around Lions Lake, we maybe sit there and look at them. With the half-cent sales tax, they were identified to replace the whole pavilion, and might not be worth putting new roofs on those pavilions if we know what the time frame is that we're going to come back and replace those pavilions. So those are all the things that we're looking at right now. A lot of it's in the insurance company's hands because they're reviewing the bids and seeing the differences between the estimate and the actual bids. And then as soon as they let us know, then we'll be able to bring that forward and get that work done.
Darren, I was told that some insurance companies will not insure a metal roof. Is that correct?
That they won't insure it?
Right.
We have not been given that indication by any means.
And the warranty on the metal roof is better than the warranty on the other types?
Well, let me explain the metal roof because there's different types of metal roof. The metal roof that we went out to is what you see on the pool building.
Right.
It is a screwed down metal roof, kind of like you'd put on a barn or whatever. You know, they come in different colors, look a little nicer. So that's a cheaper price. If we were to go with a standing seam roof, which is usually well, some call it a lifetime, but if you look at the fine print, their lifetime's 50-something years or whatever. You're going to be adding probably another $6,000, $7,000 or maybe even more to what the other metal roof was. So you're getting up in expenses there.
Are we still trying, though, to keep, like, the wish of the board that the roofs be consistent throughout all the pavilions?
We are looking at that, but we're also looking at cost. You know, what can we afford? I can tell you right now with the insurance money that they're giving us, we cannot afford metal roofs. I'll tell you that.
But will that come back to us before it goes to council?
We can run that back through here with the,
well, I mean,
what the fees are.
The reason I say that is I do think that we asked that we wanted consistency in the look of the pavilions throughout our park system. And if that's not going to happen based on money or whatever, I think that the board should know that before it goes to the council for approval. That's my wish.
We have no problem with getting that back to you before we move it on to council. The only thing I would say, and I get the consistency.
Right.
You know, I just, from a practical standpoint, though, I have some issue with a lifetime roof on a building that you don't know if you want that building even
To last
20 to 30 years. You know, it's kind of like, it's like, how do we know, you know, like even when we started talking about the Renwick Riverfront Park, you know, it's like 20 years from now, you know, city fathers may want to go ahead and redo that entire, thing down there, and maybe that lifetime roof, well, we got 20 years out of it. Well, we could have gotten shingles for 30 and saved ourselves a lot of money, but
Well, and
that's.
I
so
understand that. I
that's-
just
that's-
think.
That's my approach to it. We've talked about it, but consistency, I get it, yes.
Right, and I just think it's fair that the board knows before, you know what I mean? Because that's what we worked on, that's what we said. It would be nice to know if it's going to happen or not.
Right.
Right.
And it could even be looked at consistency of roofs per location.
Right,
If you look at it,
Yeah.
out of Hillerman Park around the lake, you already have the metal roofs or standing seam roofs at the
Right.
amphitheater and at the all abilities and stuff that you can carry that with the pavilions there, but not maybe necessarily at another park, So we
Okay.
can do that and we can bring that back.
And we may be have some sales tax out there anyway.
Right.
Yeah, there's some of it. I mean, the good news, I guess if you want to call it good news, is that we were able to go ahead and make the insurance claim
yeah,
and getting a lot of this stuff taken care of through that,
good news.
so.
Okay. Under new business, we have tree inventory.
In your packet, I scanned a copy of the tree inventory. As you may be aware, that about last year, about this time, we applied for a grant with the Missouri Department of Conservation for a trim grant. What the trim grant was for is to do an inventory of the trees within our park system and through the city, depending on the amount of the grant. There was 2 grant amounts. Actually, we did 2 applications. One application was for a maximum up to $25,000, and the other application was up to $11,000. And the reason we applied for both, because they only were going to give the $25,000 one to 4 cities throughout the whole state. So if we didn't get that, maybe we could get a better chance of getting the $11,000. However, we were one of the lucky cities that we didn't get $25,000. We got $23,833 or something is what it worked out to. And it worked on a matching system since we are a Tree City USA. We got a bigger match from the Department of Conservation as opposed to someone who's not a Tree City USA. And all the cities that received the higher amount were all Tree City USAs. And that's not by coincidence. They look at your track record or what you're doing, if you're a Tree City USA and everything like that. Well, we received the grant. We went out and hired Davie Resource Group to do the study. At the time, we had no idea exactly of how many trees that we had in our system. So our philosophy was to hit all the parks first. And we started from the west end of the town because we have our bigger parks on the west end of town. We did those, and then we moved through and did our other parks. And when I say we did our parks, we did the formal areas of the parks. We didn't do like Miller Post, that's a forested area, because that would have taken all the money and then some. So we wanted to look at the formal areas of the parks. So they ran through all that, and we still, based on the fee and stuff, we still had money. So we went back, we did the library, city hall, public safety building complex. We did some street trees and tried to look at other facilities that we had trees in and try to include as much as we could for the money that we had there. What you have before you tonight is the result of that survey. Actually, in staff's review of it, there wasn't really anything shocking to us. It basically validated what we thought as staff from just our past working with the urban forestry and our work in the field. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but they come up through part of the grant is that we had to use the computer program and the standards as set by the Missouri Department of Conservation. They're trying to get everybody in Missouri to use the same computer program, use the same standards and everything. So when we did this survey, not only did we get the paper copy, everything went into this iTree computer system, which we can go in, and any time that we prune a tree, we can go in that computer system and log out how many hours it took us, everything. We can document all that. If we removed a tree, we can document that we removed a tree. If we add a tree, we can do all that. So it keeps track of our tree system for as long as we have that software capability. At the same time, the state has it because they're trying to keep track throughout the whole state of how many trees and the benefits, and a lot of it deals with environmental stuff. So if you look in here in the executive summary, you know, they came up with, basically looking at that, we came up with an approximately $138,184.05 in annual benefits from the amount of trees that we have. And some of that comes from aesthetic, air quality, carbon that's sequestered and avoided. You look at energy, and you look at stormwater, so that's how they got to all those numbers. And so that says a lot for us, and that helps us. A lot of this stuff, like the Tree City USA and all this stuff, other stuff, helps us when we go apply for grants, other grants, and we try to do cost share stuff. We can see that we are doing these things and we want to move forward with it. Also, if you look at the plant species, there you can see that the most common that we have here is the pin oak. That's about 7%. Red maple at 5%. Eastern redbud 5%. Sycamore about 5%. Swamp white oak 5%. Then it goes from there. The only, if there is a negative thing said in here, the only negative is it says the vast majority of our trees, 61% of them, are young trees. And I'll have to say that that's due to the efforts of urban forestry and the Parks Department probably over the past 6-7 years in our efforts, because we saw that there was a decline of older trees. So what you really want to do is pretty much have a balance between old, medium, and young trees. And so we're heavy on the young trees, so hopefully in a few years the young trees will become medium trees, and then we'll come in and replace some of them as well. But overall, we look really good. In the overall category, there's like 5 categories, with excellent being the best, and you go to good, then you need some improvement, so on. And we are ranked in the good, so we're second from the highest overall quality of our trees. So I think that says well about us and what we're doing. The only, I guess, negative, the other negative thing, it's not really negative, we knew this, that we need to spend a little more time going out and pruning some of our trees, and that there's about 80 trees that need to be removed. We know that there's, by our own arborist estimation, there's probably 20 hazardous trees that need to be removed, and we've already been working on some of those. And if you've driven by some of our parks, they're removed now, but we had cut down some trees and they laid there for a little bit. Those are removed. Those were the most hazardous trees that we needed to get down before they fell on someone. But so, it comes up to our plan that we're going to have to go out and set up a schedule and try to remove these 80 trees, and plus continue a pruning program. Yeah. Now the biggest issue with that is with what staff and how we're going to do that. The best time to prune trees or anything is during the winter. And that just depends on how much of our manpower has to be with snow duty, and that kind of stuff depends on how much we can gear towards pruning. But at least we have this information. We have the locations of the trees. It's us setting up a schedule and try to knock these off and try to hit the most hazardous trees first and move on from there.
Hey, Darren.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference between a young tree train and a prune?
The biggest is just on a young tree. It's just some very basic pruning, just some clipping here and there, where the other one is a more intense pruning and limbing up of your trees.
I only have one question on
Sure.
the old trees. The tree you left down in the valley, we cut all the limbs off of it, left it there. Somebody was going to do a carving on.
We gave them time, and since they haven't come back, that is going to be removed.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we did have the Arts Council that wanted to hire a sculptor to come in there and carve up that tree to some type of sculpture, but it's been about 3 years now, at least, and we are going to take that down.
Any other questions? Thank you. Is there a need for an executive session?
No, there is not.
So are there any other comments, questions that the board might have before we adjourn?
I have a question, as it says here, if we meet on the first Thursday of each month, the next one's on July 5th. I know a lot of people take vacation during that time. Do we want to look at possibly moving that back a week? I know I'm going to be on vacation, but that's not saying someone else on my staff couldn't be here, but I will not be here on July 5th.
Well, how many people will not be? Well, look at, all right.
I'm just starting my vacation on the 5th, so I won't be here the following week either. So
We want to consider the 12th?
Yep. I think we should.
If you want to consider, I'll see the availability of the room, which
Yes.
I don't feel that should be that big of an issue, and I can email.
That's fine. So
One other thing I want to say that I forgot in my park report, and Bob and Dan, I want to thank you for your work, that they put up the big-ass fans at Bronzick Field.
And they work, by the way. I was sitting there last night.
and they work.
Yeah, you work. They're quite comfortable.
I'm glad to go around.
No, I mean, they go around, but they're moving air.
Good, I'm glad to hear
They're
that.
moving air.
Bob, have you received any comments from Legion or anything on it?
I really haven't. I know that they're awful quiet. I know that you can't hear them, and they,
There's not a bit of noise from them.
right, and,
That's nice.
Yeah, they're big-ass nice fans.
Good.
and I know that Mr. Kleinheimer donated his JLG so we could put them up, which was fantastic, and I know, and Dan's boy helped us that day also with a couple of my buddies, and so it worked out good, I thought.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, and we're going to try to reschedule the meeting for July 12th, so you could mark that down. Since there's no other questions or comments, I need a motion to adjourn and a second, please.
I'll make a motion.
Dan made a motion and a second by?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Betty, I meant, any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.